That's way better. That's way better. Yeah. Awesome.
Fantastic,
My
fantastic.
red-pilled brother. My red-pilled brother from
Oh
another
yeah,
mother.
you know the drill. You know the
Yeah,
Very
yeah,
good to
yeah.
have you here, man. Very good for this.
Anyway, oh, awesome. I'm so glad that you accepted this conversation. So we already have
Absolutely.
215 people joining in here. That's quite a bit.
Awesome,
I guess
man.
for I guess I don't think anyone probably doesn't know who you are, but I guess for anyone that maybe for some reason or another doesn't know who you are, maybe you can give yourself a very just a brief introduction, I guess, or
Absolutely, absolutely, man. Thank you very much for having me here, brother, man. Fabrice, Kelvin Akafo, that's my name. I'm an artist, pencil artist based here in London, UK. I specialize in using pencils, graphite pencils and charcoal, and I create very lifelike drawings termed as hyperrealism as we know it. So yeah, like I'm 36 now. I've been doing this professionally since I was about 27. So 2013, I had my very first big break where BBC London done a recording on me on the news. My hairy face was on TV, and it kind of catapulted me into the art world and into the media, where I got represented with a Mayfair gallery called the Alma Gallery, and it's just been just been flowing ever since. And yeah, very very grateful to be able
nice.
to do this for a living. As you know, this is our labor of love, and that's it's not easy. We're in industries where there's so much talent, and that's what keeps me humbled. It keeps me grounded, knowing that I'm very, very fortunate to be in the position I am in. So I can't ever take it for
Mhm.
granted. You know, we have this platform where we could share and we can inspire. So I think that's almost our duty as artists, being in the level that we are in right now.
Yeah. Yeah, it really is a great time to be an artist, don't you think?
Oh, for sure. Like this, you
Like
know,
what, with social media and the internet and all that.
oh yeah. Like I can definitely say if it wasn't for social media and, you know, the media outlets, I'm not sure if I would. I don't know. You could believe. I don't know. I do. Some part of me does believe in destiny. I do feel like
Yeah, oh
what's
yeah.
meant to be is meant to be. But definitely, I had a lot more of an advantage having a social media platform where I could share my works to people from all around the world. You know, back in the days, this is like 20, 30 years ago, an artist, it's so difficult to almost get your work seen because, like, the
Yeah.
art world was almost seen as like an elitist kind of arena where you have to almost have some sort of lineage about you to be accepted, or your work just has to be outstanding. You know,
Yep,
so I
yep.
feel like I was very, very fortunate with social media. We're very fortunate. Like we have a lot more independence as artists. We don't really necessarily have to rely on
Hmm.
a gallery to be seen. You could just have a work that goes on social media, and boom,
That's right.
it can go viral just like that.
That's right. Yeah, that's definitely true. Like back in the day, even in the Renaissance area, like I mean, Michelangelo and them, they all found a way. But could you
Oh.
imagine if Da Vinci had Instagram? You know?
I can't. I can't imagine it
Yeah,
because those.
yeah.
I do feel like there's pros and cons of everything, as you know, brother, man. There's pros and cons of everything. I do feel like we are very fortunate because it's so easy. The information comes so instantaneously. You can search for anything. Back then, I think there's a lot of grafting, a lot of hard work and labor to even be acknowledged. You know, so yeah, I can't imagine Michelangelo on Instagram. But you never know. There's a Michelangelo among us right now, so it's just that time, the period of
Yeah,
time that we're in. You know.
yeah. That's the thing. There are probably tons of Da Vinci's walking around that otherwise wouldn't. I kind of see you as one of those guys. Like you wouldn't have
Bless you.
probably if it wasn't for this technology. Like you wouldn't. You may have just been discovered, or you maybe would have been beholden to particular galleries that were telling you what to
Yeah.
draw, and but now you have the freedom to, it seems like you have the freedom to draw exactly what it is that you want to draw and have hundreds of thousands of people, admire your work, and you get to inspire tens of thousands of other artists coming up. And, I know that you did that for me
Mm,
and are still doing that for me, which
thank you,
is which
brother.
is amazing. And yeah,
Appreciate that,
it's really
brother.
great. It's really great. Yeah. So who knows how many
Nice.
Michelangelos are walking? Yeah, yeah. I think when I was young,
Yeah,
I think I might be a couple years younger than you. I was born in '89, but I think we're pretty similar age. I just turned 32, so I think you might be a couple
brilliant.
years older than me.
Yeah, 36 now. 36.
Oh, 36. Okay, yeah. So like when I think we
Yeah,
started drawing the same age actually. You said you were 8 years old.
that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
I was like, yourself,
yeah,
yeah?
yeah. So
Mm.
yeah, I started drawing when I was 8 as well, and yeah, I remember taking it quite seriously very, very early on. Like even drawing like Pokemon and Dragon Ball
Mm.
Z characters, I was like always trying to
Ah,
get,
Dragon Ball
get
Z.
yeah, I still have hundreds of Dragon Ball Z drawings in tucked away that are 25-year-old, 20-plus-year-old drawings that I'll cherish forever. But I remember thinking like when I was younger, like there's like when you used to think of people that were excellent artists,
Mm.
you would almost think of like the really super high end, almost pretentious modern type of art that I could never really get into. And then you had, people that maybe didn't catch on at that modern era level. But I feel like now with the internet, like I mean, everyone's got that. If I feel like if you're working hard enough and you're talented and passionate enough, I mean, it's kind of crazy to say, but I mean, there's no reason that someone couldn't do what it is that you did, right? If they have, some talent and the discipline, and they're willing to put those decades of hard work into
Yeah,
constantly improving, So
absolutely.
it's a
Like, I think
it's a, it's
one
a
thing
great
that definitely gets
opportunity.
misconstrued is, sorry, can you hear me?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, like, I think one thing that is the biggest misconception I feel is people feel like talent and skill are the same thing. I think they're very different in my eyes. Talent is more of
Oh,
an
right, yeah.
intangible. It's more, yeah, it's more intangible for me. I feel like talent is for me. The talent that I feel like I have is being able to draw freehand, being able to understand composition and lighting, tonal value. Like that's something that the level of realism is labor. That's skill. Like so that's
Hmm.
being able to like utilize hours and hours and hours of drawing, making several mistakes, understanding, different techniques to achieve certain realism outcome. So for me, that skill, talent is more vision,
Yeah,
more of an innate kind of thing, I feel, and like
I
skill
I
is more of
agree.
a
I
labor.
agree with
Like
you.
learning how to walk.
It, Yeah, I actually did a YouTube video on this last year where I talk about the role of talent in drawing, and I kind of touched some of those aspects as well. Like I talked about, like talent. Oh, one sec. There's a call coming in. There, sorry. I put not disturb, but apparently I have calls coming. All right, sorry. What was I saying? Talent. Okay, yeah. So like,
Yeah.
uh, yeah, I was kind of talking about like I agree with you completely. Like talent would be like almost genetic predispositions that you have that are like height is a talent. How high you can jump, how fast
Mm.
you how fast that you can sprint would be a talent. Or when I think of that gentleman who can memorize the landscape from a helicopter and draw it by
Stephen
memory.
Hawking. I mean, what's his name? Stephen. He's brilliant, brilliant. He's got autism.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he's got autism. Yeah, yeah.
Stephen Walkinshaw, I think. But he's just really, really amazing. Helicopter ride, was able to memorize a whole of London. Is that the same one you're talking about?
Yep, yep,
Mm.
yeah.
I think he might be British.
But yeah, like, but to me,
Yeah.
that's what I think of when I think of like talent, you know?
Mm.
Like, I mean, there is some predisposition there. Like, I'll say like when I did start drawing Pokemon and Dragon Ball Z as a kid, there was definitely, it wasn't great work or anything, but, certainly a couple years ahead of where my peers would have been, I would say. So there's certainly some talent involved in terms of like your predisposition maybe to how good you might be at something starting out and your rate of acceleration perhaps. But like you said, man, it's the hard it's I think people do conflate the talent versus the skill. And I kind of,
Mm.
and of course I might say this from my perspective, like maybe I have more, maybe there's more, maybe we can't tell because we're in it, you know, but maybe there is more talent than we assume that there would be required to. But I just always assume that that it doesn't require as much talent as maybe some other things. Like you're not going to play in the NBA almost certainly unless you have gifted athletic talent, no matter how hard that you
Mm.
try, right? But I think anyone can get better at drawing, like yeah,
Yeah, definitely. Like just from having just that understanding, So one thing, not to change too much off topic, but try to keep it within here. Like my experience in university and art school, well, university in particular, wasn't the greatest in terms of really feeling inspired to be an artist because
yeah.
a
And
lot of
you have a degree in fine arts, correct?
yeah, I have a degree in fine art from Middlesex University. Great uni. It was in
Yeah,
a campus called Cat Hill, which I think many people who went there would agree that it's was like a nice art hub, artists coming together, congregating, and just building off ideas and seeing each other's works was amazing. But I
yeah.
feel like what was being taught or what was being directed was for artists to be very conceptual, in a contemporary age, and that conceptual thing being very mind dominant. Like like in order to create a great, it has to have some
I
mental
know.
conceptual intelligence to it. Like there was
Yeah,
one
it
person
was
on
it
there,
was less
I'll never
focused
forget.
on the skill, maybe.
Yes, yeah, exactly. It was
Yeah,
more
yeah.
about the
Sorry to cut you
concept, the
off there.
idea.
I kind of agree
Can you
with
hear
you
me?
because I have a mind. Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah, yeah,
You can hear me? I
yeah. I can
agree
hear you
with
now.
you
Yeah,
because okay, great. I agree with you because I have a fine arts minor degree. I studied human kinetics. I've been a personal trainer my whole life, but I took some electives in art, just as a minor, just for fun. But I found for me it kind of stunted my passion for a little bit of time at least. I found like I totally agree with you. Like they would emphasize a little bit too much. I was just there trying to draw like super, like trying to draw realistic, and I felt like it had to have some greater meaning. It's like stop, like no, like what does this mean? Well, doesn't mean anything. It's just what are you talking about? Like if I'm going to run a marathon, does that have to have meaning?
mm,
It's
exactly.
hard work
That's
and
I
you
love
can
that. That's
respect it. You can respect the work, the training that goes into running that marathon, but does it have to mean some greater thing? Like I feel it kind of pulled me away from that a little bit because I felt like these teachers were too pretentious. They were too, they maybe, I found that this wasn't all my teachers, but I found that some of the teachers were maybe not, I guess, very, very skilled at the things that they were maybe teaching. And these were lower level
mm,
classes. They weren't like this wasn't an art school, but they would rely and lean onto the meaning and what does this mean and what are you trying to tell? And I guess I see the
mm.
point, but for me it was always a turn off because for me I'm like I don't care about all that shit. I'm just trying to draw this. It doesn't mean anything. I'm just trying, you know what I'm saying? So I feel like we're probably
Absolutely.
very similar. Yeah.
So many of my peers at the time got discouraged, and they no longer continue to do art. So it's
It's
like it
it's
killed.
very too bad.
Mm. kids
I agree
killing the
with
passion and the inspiration.
they killed that passion, and that's how I felt too, just in the few classes that I took, and that's why I never wanted to go to art school because I'm like, man, like when and you know I look at people like you and like Jono Dry and some of the other some of the best pencil artists, and a common theme that I notice is that they're all self-taught to some extent, to most,
Yeah.
like, because I'm just going out on a limb here, but I don't think anyone at Sussex taught you how to draw the way that you're drawing, correct?
Nah, like it's nah. No one at that Middlesex,
No.
no one. Like it was just labor, 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 labor of love, and just building on, building
Yeah.
on, building on. And at that time, it's like hyperrealism. I understood. So going to university, it was what I could say the pros were about university was you're in an environment where there's other artists. So you could like bounce off art ideas. You could almost kind of like understand and gauge how I guess how artists, how they work. You could like just rub
Hmm.
off ideas, have inspiration. But in the teaching side of things, I think what I got was understanding, I guess, the history of art. So
Hmm.
hyperrealism was when I was in university, that was a time where I really understood where the genre of art that I'm working on came from. Before then, I just knew that I just like to draw in a lifelike manner. I didn't put myself in a box. I didn't categorize it. I just knew that this is what I love to do. And then when I saw works
Hmm.
like from Chop Clothes and other photorealists, I was like, okay, oh wow. So there's actually a genre where people do create art like this. And like they just completely discouraged me from because they were like, Kelvin, yes, you're very detailed, like you have a great level of skill, but
People always told me
there's
that too, almost as people told me that too, almost as a jab.
yeah,
Like as if, oh, it's very technical, very skilled, very realistic. But I'm like, what do you mean,
but
but? What do you mean, but?
yeah.
Like that, what do you mean? But that's the goal. That's what I'm trying to do. And that's it. Like, I don't need your criticism beyond that. Right. So, I mean,
Absolutely.
yeah, sorry to cut you off there, but I agree with
No,
you,
that
man.
is,
I
I love
agree.
that you understand that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Because for me, like I always like for me, early on, I almost never really saw myself even as an artist for that reason because
Mm,
I almost saw it as like this thing that I found it very objective in a sense. Like art is very subjective, but I found the hyperrealism, and of course, I wasn't into the hyperrealism when I was younger. I didn't even know it existed, but I was always attracted to making the next drawing better than the previous one. More and by my measurement, that would just be like more realistic. You know what I mean? So like for me, that was very nice because it almost turns a subjective thing into what can be objectively measured almost, even though you're looking at it, it's subjective. But so for me, it was very similar to like going to the gym in the sense that, you could put more weight on the bar. Wow, progress. You know, I can make this look more realistic. Well, that's progress. That's progress. You know what I
exactly.
mean? And that's always how I saw it. So it was like a way to turn a subjective thing into a objectively tangible thing that you can see gains on, you know? And I didn't give a shit.
Yes.
I didn't give a crap about what anyone's opinion on what this underlying meaning was because there was no underlying meaning.
There you go. You see, but
Yeah.
it's like it's. I guess if I can ask you, where did your resilience come from? Because like a lot of people, you got the fight and flight kind of people in this world. You're clearly someone who will fight their way. You're not going to surrender to the negative comments or discouragement. What was it like? Like, have you always been that way? Is it nature or nurture? Have you always been not easily
Um,
swayed and discouraged? Because a lot, like we said, a lot of people when they've been told, oh, this work of art isn't, blah blah blah, they get discouraged, they take it personally, and
mhm.
they lose inspiration. But I guess you and I, we
Yeah.
just know that no, this is something we love to do, and I'm doing it regardless. Well, where did it come
Yeah.
from you? Have you always been like that?
I wouldn't, I would never really think of myself in that way, but I appreciate that you would see me that way. But to be honest, I was never told anything negative by anyone that I've respected. So it never bothered me. You know, like I didn't actually respect any of my art teachers in school, and I didn't actually respect any artists that would ever even say anything about hyperrealism in that way. So it just didn't bother me because I didn't respect the opinion in the first place. You know, like if if before we met you told me those things, I'd be like, damn. You know, and I might take that more, I might take that more to heart. But I think for me, it was just never something that I was self-conscious about. Like I wasn't trying to make art that had this underlying meaning. So when someone said that it didn't have this underlying meaning, it never bothered me because I wasn't even trying to do that in the first place. You know, it's like a
Excellent.
stand-up comic.
Excellent.
It's like it's a stand-up comic, for example, doing a bit about this political thing, and then they get all this hate. But meanwhile, they
Yeah,
don't actually care about that. It's just they're making a joke. There's no other meaning to it.
exactly.
It's just supposed to be funny. I'm just trying to
Mm.
draw this realistic thing. So how about you? Is that something that you struggled with, or?
No, like I think I've always been a kind of person. I think exterior wise, people see me. I get a lot of humble, like you're very quiet, very humble, you're gentle, which I guess I am. Doing what we do, it forces you
Mhm.
to be patient and still, and like you have to humble
Yeah,
yourself in order to work those hours. But like
yeah.
I've always been quite stubborn in regards of if there's something I love to
Yes.
do, I'm doing it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you're
That's
not like nothing
honestly,
is going to
we're, yeah,
discourage.
we're definitely similar in that regard. I feel like growing up, my parents always told me this, like if they were basically, if I was supposed to do something, I would just not do it just as an FU, just out of spite, like you're not going to tell me what to do. I got to make my own decision to do it. But yeah, there was always people that I looked up to even when I was younger that were you on DeviantArt when you were younger?
When it was on TV,
No,
sorry.
DeviantArt. It's but like
Oh,
before
do you
Instagram,
know?
before everything,
Bro,
deviantart.com. Like
we're going to have to talk about DeviantArt because for me,
that's how I got started.
Deviant,
That's how I got started.
like that's kind of where. Oh man, do you want us to go into this right now? Because this, what I'm about
Sure,
to
yeah.
say, what I want to say about DeviantArt is DeviantArt was the make and break of this Kelvin Akafo art thing going on right now. Because
Hmm. Yeah.
so that was I first joined social media in 2010. And even the internet, that was the first time I really properly used the internet. And it was Facebook that I joined. And that was because my friends at university were like, Kelvin, let's stay in touch, get onto Facebook. It's this place where you can connect with old friends that you went to like primary school with that you knew when you were really young. And it's just like a nice little community. So I joined Facebook. But what I ended up doing was after a little while, connected with my friends that I've known from when I was a child, I ended up sharing my works on there, just like sharing my works on my Facebook profile. And then my friends were like, "Oh wow, Kelvin, it's good you're still doing that art. It looks amazing." Da 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 da. And then there was other people who were like, because my profile was open where people can just see the works on the main page. It wasn't private. So then I was getting lots of people just coming around and saying, "Oh
You're talking
wow,
about Facebook, correct?
yeah, Facebook, yeah." They were
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
"Wow, what is that a photograph? Is that a drawing?" So it was just building a little small kind of people getting interested. And then
Yeah.
that year, that's 2010, from Facebook, it was the time that I was browsing the internet and I saw there were other art communities, art websites where it was like community based. There was Redbubble and there was Deviant Art. Brother,
DeviantArt, that's it.
Deviant Art DeviantArt for me,
That for me was everything. Yeah.
Oh man, I really want the people listening to really hear what I'm about to say right now because holy, I, it was a crazy. So after Facebook, I saw DeviantArt, I joined DeviantArt, and there was so many amazing artists, many genres on there,
Yeah.
and I submitted my works on there. I put my works on there, and it was like within a week, it was like it was gaining crazy momentum. People were just, lots of love, lots of praise. Like, who's this? It looks like a photograph, and because at that time I had no work in progress, there was no accolades,
That's right.
nothing
That's
about me
right.
other
There's
than
no proof.
I
No
just
proof that it's a drawing.
no proof, no proof. So, and at that time, I
Yeah.
mean, Photoshop was like it was becoming a really big thing at that time. So
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
it was like I think I believe I joined end of August, September 2010, and it was just like the first few weeks was just a huge influx of like people just sharing my works, loving it, lots of positive praise. And then one day, bro, one day in September 2010, I got a message from someone, and it was like I got like a direct message, and the person said, "Read this, you fake blah blah blah." Curse words, like it was like you. It's just like curse words. I don't want to say it out loud. I opened it up, and this is the first time that I'm like, oh, woo. So this is the first time that I'm receiving any kind of negative anything.
Yeah.
Open it up, and it was a whole blog about why my works were fake. So
Oh,
I,
I think I saw this. I think I saw this,
bro,
or I think
bro.
maybe you posted about it, and I saw it. Pretty funny stuff, but man,
Bro, it
take it
was
as a compliment,
so
right?
at first. Oh, definitely. So at first, I definitely took it as a compliment because it was just like they were just trying to prove why the works were fake, and I'm just like, okay. So, but at that time, because I was just so used to receiving positive praise, my ego was just like, without me realizing, I was so I was so reliant on positive comment and praise to almost kind of
Yeah.
satisfy me a little bit and my ego. So when that happened, my ego got bruised because at first it felt like a compliment, but then it got very
Hmm.
racial. It got very
Hmm.
they were slandering me. They called up my university to know whether I really went there. They were calling me a scam
Wow.
artist, a Nigerian scam. It was you could literally type my name into
Oh
Google
my God.
and it will have Kelvin Akafo, fake fraud artist. So, and at that time as well, because there was like momentum happening from Facebook to the DeviantArt in that year, people were inquiring to commission work, from me. And at the time, I was selling my drawings
Did
for like £100, £150, and then when that blog went out because it went viral, that blog, they ended up people ended up coming back to me and said, Kelvin, we've just discovered this blog, and we're aware that your works are not genuine. We're so disappointed. So people, so they potentially took away business and work from me. So
yeah.
that's when I felt like it was a bit personal because my potential livelihood was being halted. They were hindering it.
Hmm.
So
And
it was like
this was 2010.
it was like, yeah, this is 2010, September 2010, and it took several months, like 3 months, for I just had to get myself off social media because it was that bad. I couldn't take it as
Wow.
a compliment because it just got too far to the point where they were slandering my name. So social media for me felt like we spoke earlier on in this conversation about it being a great thing, like just the exposure, like being in this day and age, how helpful it is for artists. But at that time,
Hmm.
I just saw it as this negative place where people are just 1 second they're praising you and the next second they're slandering you, and it just
The world
and it
wasn't
just was a
ready for
huge
that level of hyper realism.
oh
That's I guess
man,
that's
bro,
I guess that's
bro.
the good thing about the social media is like you probably started posting progress pictures, right? And then people see like, oh shit,
There you go.
that's it, that's it.
And bro,
I
that's
2000
that's how it
yeah,
was.
yeah, DeviantArt.
So
I
like
probably joined
when that
DeviantArt
time,
about the same time.
yeah, sorry, bro.
Go ahead. Oh, yeah, you go ahead. Were you gonna say something?
You
Or?
know, I was just gonna say, yeah, no, I was just gonna say like it was the progress pictures that because I didn't in my mind I'm thinking because at that period of time no one really did like work in progress images. So
No.
like I'm thinking to myself like, but why? I didn't understand how I could prove my works were genuine. I was writing
Yeah.
long paragraphs about my techniques and how I do things, and they were like, nope,
Yeah.
your works are fake. You're this, you're that.
Yeah.
So what that forced me to do, which ended up being the thing that got me to where I am right now, was documenting the work in progress, which I called stages of
Hmm.
evolution. So
Stage
I would
evolution.
like
Yeah.
I'll do like 100 pictures and videos of the work in progress, you know, and
Yeah.
just to show people the actual stages. So what ended up happening
Hmm.
was after I took a break off social media, you know, it was like early 2011, I decided I was just so focused and disciplined. I said, nope, I'm okay. If I join going on social media, I am never ever again. And I'm never ever going to internalize anyone saying, like, positive and negative. I don't care. Like, I'm just genuinely there to share my works, you know, and to show
Yeah.
people what I'm doing and hopefully inspire. So then
Yeah.
sharing the work in progress throughout that whole year, at the end of 2011, many of the people came back and were like, oh, Kelvin, I was one of the people that doubted you, but I can see your works
No
are
way.
genuine. Yeah, they
Yeah.
really
Yeah.
like.
Yeah.
But then the year
That's
after
nice.
was when was when I won my very first award. So then it was like they can actually see that this person was actually genuine. But Deviant Art was
Hmm.
definitely it was the break of a lot of people because there was the reason why they could criticize me that way because there was a lot of fake like there was a lot of people that's drawing they'll print out a work and draw over it. So
Yeah.
I
That's
could
right. Yeah.
understand why. Yeah.
I have seen people fake their work, and I have a good eye now, and I can tell almost instantly when unfortunately you do see it,
Mm,
and people do fake their drawings sometimes online, which is really kind of sad to see. But you know,
mm,
but unfortunately it does happen. But they'll maybe print off a picture off of the internet and then put some tape on it to make it look like they taped it to the table and drew it, or But I'm a little bit different from you in that way. Is I actually I look forward to those negative comments. I can't wait till I get my first hit piece like that.
mm. But I guess it's because at that time, it's like it was social media was just this new world to me. So,
That's right.
and
Yeah.
I'm receiving all of this praise, and what made it personal for me, bro, was there were artists that I admire like yourself who were on the blog and were saying people that I genuinely admired their work. They were like, I always knew that guy was fake. So people that I admired were also slandering. So then I was like, whoa,
Uh,
this is
yeah.
this is crazy.
That
So
really
someone that
sucks.
I really respected their work, that just I was like, whoa,
Hmm.
okay, so okay, cool. You know, it took a big bruise to the ego, but it was the biggest, greatest blessing because now we're living in a day and age where people are just sharing things on social media for validation and not really sharing it because they're truly inspired by what they do. It's just to have
That's right.
comments and likes. You know, so I
Yeah.
fortunately escaped the matrix early before
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
it just got crazy, you know?
I'm very I feel like we're fortunate that we started drawing at the young age and the time period that we started at to some extent. Like now there's a lot of benefits I think to being to like coming up now because you're like you have all kinds of good resources. Like there was no social media really back then. Like there's no one really to learn off of, right? Like you can't really be inspired by all that as many people. There's no progress pictures on the internet, but now they're everywhere, right? Like I've learned even a lot from
Everywhere.
you, just watching your progress pictures, your videos, zooming into your drawings over the years. And like you wouldn't be able to do that, I don't think, 20 years ago. But it also, I think, let us draw freely because we were doing it for strictly the passion, right? We didn't have any followers, no, like now you can post a quick sketch on TikTok, get a million views. Well, I don't know how to do that, but there, like, I feel like you're right. That's certainly a strong driver, I think, of people doing their art is the likes and the comments. And of course, I fall into that as well from time to time. You get caught up in building your social media, and I'm sure maybe you felt that before, but it wasn't why you got into that. It wasn't why you started.
Exactly.
Like I when I was younger, I was quite introverted as a kid. I was never like unpopular growing up or anything, but I wasn't the super popular kid that was going out all the time. And I kind of really appreciated just coming home after school, after basketball and practice, to just draw all night, all day. And I think it takes probably a certain temperament to even want to sit down for hours and just draw just for its own sake,
Okay.
because you know I had a very similar not similar as with the deviant art, like what you were saying, but with deviant art, I had a similar experience, not with the negativity or anything, but just the way that it motivated me early on and gave me inspiration. Because, like, for me, none of my, I think I probably started in a little bit before you on DeviantArt, like maybe 2008 or something, like 2007 maybe, and none of my work really ever caught on DeviantArt. But for me, DeviantArt was really something that I used for inspiration. Like, if it wasn't for DeviantArt, I don't think I would have even been able to see what level was possible. Like
Exactly.
I didn't actually know. I like You got to understand that before social media, like, y- how would you know that a certain level of drawing is possible if you've never seen it? Like, you know, how will you know that you can even get there if you've never even seen anyone do it before? So for me, DeviantArt
Absolutely.
was it was very eye-opening, because I would like see these crazy realistic drawings. I'd be like, no way.
Yeah.
Wow. And it would just
Mm.
push me to like try to get to that next level, right? So yeah, for me it was I don't think I would be probably even into realism to this extent if it wasn't for deviant art when I was a teenager.
Likewise. It was so amazing to see that, wow, there's people that are drawing like just like me, but there's just so many different levels. So it was
Yeah.
very, very, very inspiring, but like I definitely see that whole experience as a pure blessing. Like it's not even there's
Yeah.
no I have
100%.
no negative feeling to it, because it kind of led me to, it just made me become a lot more accessible in terms of people seeing the work in progress, because all they were seeing were just finished
Hmm.
images, and so which could just easily be
Especially when they're
I
that
guess
realistic, sorry to cut you off there, but especially when they're that realistic and you just have like no
mm,
context to it, and you just boom, here's the picture. It's like you need, like, but if you watch for 2 months the evolution posts and stuff, right, and then you see the journey, and then you post the
mm,
thing, it's like it hits you on an emotional level. You get the perspective, right? But it's funny.
yeah,
You said that you were experiencing that on DeviantArt in 2010. And
yeah.
what do you remember? What drawings? Do you remember what drawings people were criticizing?
So it was, I had a drawing of, in London, there's a very famous area called Trafalgar Square, which there's these big, huge monument statues of lions out of like bronze. It was like sculpted. And I drew them because for my end of year degree show, I focused on Trafalgar Square lions and what that was symbolic was for me. And yeah, so I ended up having some drawings of the lions, and then put them on the Deviant Art, and they just couldn't believe it. And there was also at a time I had drawn Rick Ross, the rapper Rick Ross. I had drawn Beyonce at the time, Alicia Keys. So a few famous faces, because like it was just a nice
Yeah,
way for people to kind of connect with the art. And I think that's
that's
also
right.
the celebrity portraits that I've drawn over the years from the very beginning. I feel helped with people recognizing my work because it was like faces that people can identify with, and people can
That's
also,
right.
in order for them to see how accurate I can draw, a famous face was the
That's
best
right.
thing to do because you can actually see
That's
it.
right.
Like, yeah, and but what they were doing
Yeah,
was they just couldn't believe that accurate, so they just went in and just
yeah,
really went in. But I'm looking back now, it was just it was the best thing that could have ever happened to me, bro. The best thing,
yeah. I
like
think
to be
so. Yeah,
criticized
I
like
think
that.
so. You also did a Heath Ledger one around that time, right?
Oh
That one
yeah,
was really good.
oh
That
yeah.
one was really good.
So
And
so the
if I'm
Heath,
correct, I think the Mother Teresa one was the one that really
oh
popped
yes,
you off, right?
that's the
Yeah,
one. That is the one that got it on the BBC and that got like lots
that's
of
right.
media
Yeah.
coverage. It just took everything away. And you know why I drew that one? Like so, it was that was done in that was February 2011. That was the first drawing that I DeviantArt thing because I was looking at that time. I was feeling really sorry for myself and just feeling like a little bit depressed because I was so like social media was such exciting thing. It was amazing, and then it turned into something really ugly where people are like slandering people who were going to buy commission me to draw, but taking back their request and just I was seen as just a fake guy. I didn't know how I could prove myself. So
Yeah.
Mother Teresa, that drawing it meant a lot for me because her life, and the kind of being that she was, like it just kind of inspired me to capture someone who was like a gentle, noble spirit. From what I can see, I didn't know Mother Teresa as a person,
Mhm.
but from what I'm seeing, from how she was displayed, I felt inspired to draw her because of like just the kind of life that she lived, and I documented the process, and that drawing became the drawing that really catapulted me in terms of the
Yeah.
level of realism I had achieved at the time, but also how it was just everywhere. It went viral at the time, and it's
Hmm.
led me to having an audience that I do today.
That's amazing. Could you imagine how much criticism you would have had if you would have posted today's level of realism back then?
Oh my God. They wouldn't even.
Because when I first saw that when I first saw the Mother Teresa drawing, I was incredibly amazed. But when I look back at it now, I think, wow, like compared to the stuff that you're doing now, it's just you're catapulted into a whole other level compared to that. Even though that was still very amazing, right? But yeah, that's you would have definitely had to post the progress pictures.
No,
Yeah.
and
So
that's an amazing thing as well. Like this how we progress because when I look at Mother Teresa drawing now, it's like we're as artists we're also very critical as well.
that's
I'm
right.
very self-critical of our work, which is why when I finish a
Oh yeah.
drawing,
Yeah, you kind
I
of
put
have
it
to be.
away.
Yeah.
Mm.
Okay.
You have to be. You have to be
Okay.
for sure. Like you have to be a bit critical in terms of like with the kind of nature of the work that we do. In order to progress and in order to learn more ways to really convey the emotion, to convey the realism, we have to be so analytical. So for me, when I finish
Hmm.
drawing, I put it away as soon as because I've spent hundreds of hours on it. I've studied it. I put it away because I know that once I start the next drawing, there's new levels that I'm learning. I'm always learning something new. And then when I look at that
Hmm.
work, I want to go back to it and I want to, but I just know that when it's
Yeah.
finished, that was the very best that I could do at that time. And I just leave it
Yeah.
alone and then I go on to the
That.
next.
Yeah.
And that's how I just continue to just build.
No, I agree with you 100%. Like for me, I just learned to forgive myself for all you can't punish yourself for things you didn't know in the past, right? So like for me,
Exactly.
I have my drawings tucked away in these protective sleeves, and once they're done, like you said, I don't ever come back to them, right? I just kind of leave them as like an artifact of what I was. Do you know what I mean? It's like that's
Yes.
what I could do
Yes.
then. that's what I could do then. And given the knowledge that I had then, I'm super happy with it. You know, like I
Mm,
couldn't have done any better than looking like if you're like an athlete, let's say, and you were lifting weights or something, and you look back on when you can only squat 200 or something, and now you can squat 500, and it's like, wow, that was a good 200-pound squat. You know, I trained my ass off for that, but you know, it's not
mm,
good compared to 500, but you know, for a kid, that was awesome, and I'm really proud of that. I'm not going to go back and try to diminish my work from back then. You know what I mean? So yeah,
absolutely.
I definitely agree with you there. That's why I keep them kind of tucked away, and I'm like, no, whatever I know now, it's on. I'm going to translate that to my next one. Yeah. So let me
Absolutely.
ask you, who are some of your favorite artists that have inspired you along the way, or maybe even today? Like some of the people that you look up to the most as a on a
Mm.
skill level, or even on an artistic side of things.
You know why this question is always so hard is because there's so many. Like, and
Yes.
it's artists that, it's artists that I don't even, that I might have just come across on social media or even like in a exhibition in person and just been blown away by it. So it's so hard to name one, but I'll
Hmm.
try. There's an artist called his name is Gottfried Hellman. He is an
Hmm.
Austrian artist. His works are really huge in scale. He does really big paintings and also photographs of work as well. And the theme of his work is there's a lot of children, and he talks about how, you know, in today's society, innocence from children has been stripped away. Really incredible works. And he was the first artist that I saw on social media back in 2010 that as a painting, I've never seen anything like it in terms of realism and scale. Chuck Close had great photo realism, but with this Gottfried guy, like his works were just unbelievably, like there was just it had a photo quality, but it also had a really lifelike quality that was just unbelievable, really unbelievable. So definitely Gottfried Hellman, yourself, like there's
Thank you.
just so like, and also back home in Nigeria, so many artists there as well. You have Rinze, Ken Wajibu, Oscar. Yeah, there's just it's so
Oh
hard
yeah.
to name because
Oscar's
there's
the
just
pen artist, right?
bullpen. Yeah,
Oh my
I,
goodness,
I
yeah,
I would say
amazing.
so with that with the bullpen art. I'm not sure if I've seen an artist hit that level of realism with the bullpen.
No,
It
I
is
don't. I've never
really
seen it before. Yeah,
his
it's
works
all
are
different
really
types of
really
tech.
incredible.
Yeah,
Mm,
he was featured on Insider magazine there. It was really very. They did a whole 10-minute piece on him. It was amazing.
really incredible.
Yeah, Jono Dry's got some good work too. Like he's
That's
got.
Jono.
Yeah,
My God,
he's on that
he is
next level, man.
he is absolutely brilliant. And what I love about him as well is him as a person too. You know, it just
So
reflects
humble.
in his
Yeah.
work. Like really, really
Yes.
lovely
Yeah.
guy. He has like he has an he has a series of eye drawings that he does every year. Just
Yes.
absolutely insane. Really
Yeah. Yeah.
amazing
His most
level.
recent one, Jelly Drop. His most recent Jelly Drop one, I thought was some of his best work, probably. Just oh my
Incredible.
good. Yeah, absolutely amazing.
Amazing. Really, really
Yeah. So
amazing.
you
So
draw on
if
flat paper, right? You draw
yes.
on a flat surface, right? So that's one thing. Like I've
Yeah,
always
so
drawn on a flat table, but I'm trying to draw a little bit bigger. Like so far, the biggest that I've ever drawn is 19 by 24 inches. I'm not exactly sure in centimeters what that is, but it's my
18.
table's only so big, you know. So it's like I feel like if I'm going to draw bigger, like I guess how do you draw the scale that you do on a flat surface? Do you have to lean over the table? Like what do you do?
No, so I don't draw, I draw upright. So so the table, so I have a
Oh,
table that is 19 years old and I built it. So back in like early 20s, must have been about 22, 23, or 20, no, sorry, 19 at the time that I got the table. When I knew that I did about 100 of A4 drawings, then I went on to do about 80 to 90 A3 drawings, doubling the size as years went on. And I just found that the bigger that I was going, I needed to have more perspective. So I built the table where it can, it's kind of collapsible. So I can work flat and then I could work
Kind of like a
upright.
drafting,
When
like
it,
a drafting table almost,
yeah,
like an
yeah, but
architecture
like
table
it's,
almost, like it goes up.
yeah, but like it's really DIY where my at the time I was living in an area called Tottenham in London, and my bedroom the curtain had this pole to hang up the curtains. So I took off the curtains and had the pole, and I just built it into the table where I could table up the board upright to draw. So I think on bigger scales, I think it's very important to have it upright because also posture as well. Like I found
Yeah.
that during so many years I was hunched over. Fortunately for working out, it kind of like just working out kind of gives you a good posture and good form, especially when you do the exercises right. So that kind of helped
Yeah,
me.
yeah,
But
yeah.
for several years, I've
Yeah.
always been very hunched over. So yeah,
Yeah, see,
that's how I worked it
for me,
upright.
I get a lot of questions. Yeah, I did not know that about you. I thought you drew flat as well, like on a flat surface. That's really interesting. I probably have to start looking into modifying my surface because the table is kind of limited right now to the side, and you can only lean so if you're working on the top of your drawing and it's big, like you literally have to lean over your entire drawing. Like that doesn't work. But
Mm.
it's right. I get a lot of questions about um, posture and like do you ever get sore when you're drawing and back and neck, and for me I've never ever run into that really, luckily, because I think like you said with the working out it really does help,
Mm.
because I mean if you can deadlift 500-600 pounds or whatever with good technique, I mean being a little bent over is such a low strain compared to what you're capable of.
Oh
It's
yeah.
not really it doesn't really affect. So for me, I think that I would highly recommend following a strength training program, even just
Yes.
so you don't feel like shit when you're drawing.
For
Yeah,
sure, for sure, for
yeah.
sure.
So I asked you some of your favorite artists. I have another question for
Mm.
this one's coming from myself. What would you recommend for someone that is looking to get into the NFT world? And
Mm.
do you recommend they perhaps sell, like, do you, for instance, sell I know you're into NFTs. Do you sell the physical copy of the drawing alongside the digital asset? Or do you just sell the NFT as its own separate thing and then you sell the original physical drawing separately?
Yeah, separately, but to add more value. So for example, the NFT that I did last year, I did the work in progress for Winnie Harlow, and for Naomi
Mhm.
Campbell and Skepta, the musician, and I did like the work in progress. So I haven't sold the finished product, like the finished original drawing, the image of it. I've never done the NFT for it. It's only the work in progress stages. And what I did was
Oh, you did an
when
NFT just for the stages of evolution.
yeah, 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 which was really cool because
Okay.
people are buying the work in
Wow.
progress. So with each work
So
in
it's all
progress, so for
as
example,
one?
Naomi Campbell,
So you
no,
sell
no, it's a single
the
model.
state. Oh, wow. So each
Yeah,
stage is its own NFT.
absolutely. So
And
it's
then you can
like
combine all the NFTs into one. That's really interesting.
and create and create
Uh,
like a time lapse video, bringing it to life. But I guess the great thing about selling them individually. So for example, Naomi Campbell, there's 116 work in progress stages, including videos. Selling them individually, it's like someone has stage 97. You almost kind of want to. It's like a collectible. You almost kind of want to buy the whole
it's like a
collection.
trading
So I
card.
guess
Like, oh,
that's
I
what
want number 100. It's
exactly.
like yeah,
Yeah.
that's
So,
pretty
so, so
cool. I
to
never
add
would have thought of
value,
that.
to add value to each of the work in progress stage, I would have when they buy the stage, let's say for example stage 10, which isn't really much, just outlined in a bit of the background. I would also have a print, a limited edition print of that stage, so it gives the person more value,
Oh,
so that they're buying an
oh, I
NFT,
see.
but they can also get the physical as well. So they can get that stage in the physical
Oh,
stage, and there's also the
okay.
videos as well. But the thing about NFTs now, it's like I'm not really I'm not really a part of it right now. Like I do plan on releasing something towards the end of this year, but the kind of, I guess the kind of art that's on NFTs, the kind of art that we do is, it's almost like a luxury for that place, because it's not really a thing there. Like it's more like digital kind of art that's kind of really popular right now. But
Yeah.
yeah, but
I feel
I
like
do believe.
I feel like NFTs is almost like NFTs is almost like the popular. It's almost like they're not necessarily buying it for they want the actual art, like what they would have done for you.
Yeah,
Like if you're buying stage 18 of Evolution of Naomi Campbell and you got the print, like you're a huge fan and you just want that piece, right? But if you're buying like a Bored Ape NFT, man, like I'm sorry, you're probably just buying it just to resell it for more money down the line. You're not,
yeah,
you know what I mean? Like it's just an ad set, like a
100%.
coin that, right? So it's very limited, I
Yeah,
think, in the sense that like what you're doing. But that's a really good idea. So let me ask you, do you you get your original drawing scanned, right?
I get them professionally
Or
photographed.
oh, you take them photograph. Okay, so you get so how do you
Yeah.
get each how do you get each stage professionally photographed as well?
No, so I take my own I take all the pictures of the stages and the videos, but the finished image, and I've been doing it since 2013. I have a photographer called Tony Harris here in London, and he professionally photographs it. And the reason why I got it professionally photographed was obviously like it's greater quality, but that's when I first 2013 was when I first had prints made. So having like
Mm.
really high resolution images printed, there's a printing company called Genesis in London that I use, and the prints look freakishly like the original because it's really, really
Hmm.
sophisticated print work that they do there. So having,
Yeah.
yeah, having them professionally photographed gives me the CMKY and a really high 300 DPI resolution that I can have,
Mhm.
I can have printed. But yeah, it's
Wow.
professionally photographed, the finished drawings. Yeah.
Okay, so you make prints of your picture of your stages though, not professionally.
No, um, no. So that was purely for NFTs. Like the prints that I make are I've only ever released like 8 prints in total in terms of subjects. So a few of my personal subject models, Naomi Campbell, Heath Ledger. I've made prints for John Lennon. I mean, sorry, but
Hmm.
with the NFTs, that is specifically for the NFTs.
Oh,
But
okay.
I'm also planning to have them like available for people to purchase now as well, because people love. I've just been told over the years that people have been following the work in progress stages, and people really
Hmm.
love it. So just them being able to buy like a one of one stage 18 of even my self portrait is yeah, like it's adding more value for people. But the reason why I got into prints is the I guess the value of my art was a lot more affordable for supporters, like
Hmm.
being able to just have a little piece of my art. That's why I introduced limited edition prints. But like I do feel like limited edition prints can devalue the original drawing. Like because
They can?
I guess what yeah, because like when a collector is buying, so my drawings now, and bro, when I say this, like sometimes I have to pinch myself because it's quite surreal. Like at
I
most, my
know, yeah.
drawings go for like it's 6 figures now, So
Hmm.
it's
Yeah.
like when someone's buying an original drawing, they want to feel like it's a one of one. They don't want to feel like there's any kind of reproductions ever made from it. But you know,
Hmm.
it's also a way that when the work, so someone like Banksy or Damien Hirst, they they have to have limited edition print runs because their works are such high in demand. But their limited edition prints is very, very valuable because how
Yeah,
sought after they are. But I think
that's
as an
right.
artist, you really want,
And you
in the
also
same
can't
way
own
some
you
people,
also can't own a
yeah,
Banksy. I was gonna say you also can't
yep,
own a Banksy original because they're murals on
yep,
walls, right? So the prints are
yeah,
the art that
exactly,
you would have to own, right? So yeah,
yeah,
is there a particular platform that you recommend for NFTs?
for, so
For
I
NFTs,
would
like a
recommend,
platform, OpenSea or
yeah, yes, OpenSea, Foundation, and Super Rare. But Super Rare is super hard to get into because
oh, it's selective,
they've
yeah,
got like a, yeah, it's very, very hard to get into. But Super Rare,
yeah,
Foundation, and OpenSea. OpenSea is
yeah,
probably the main one right now.
yeah. Emmanuel posts
Are you
his.
think about it?
I'm wanting to really get into the NFT game right now, not because I like NFTs, but I figure why leave anything on the table, you know, like it may as well. But I really like the
Hmm.
idea of the progress pictures. Like that would be very interesting. And I could even you could even consider like you know, selling NFTs maybe of like I do time lapse videos of my work, right? Like you've seen a
Yeah,
couple of them. And like you could even maybe do an NFT of something like that, right? But, or
absolutely,
like
absolutely.
yeah, yeah. So that would be interesting. Emmanuel does NFTs on Super Rare, right?
Oh, that's Canyo. Oh, that. So he was one of the artists. See, there's just so many that is. I feel bad saying any
Yeah,
name because I'm missing out. Other artists, Emmanuel Descano
yeah.
is he is just brilliant, absolutely brilliant. I
He's a
think
mod.
he's
He's like
definitely
a modern day Renaissance artist, I think.
Renaissance. Absolutely, like he's just brilliant
Yeah,
and a brilliant person as well. Like he's really taken advantage of the NFT space. Like me and him
yeah.
actually have be so I'm due to like really probably touch base with him because we may do something together in the NFT space, which
Mm.
would be really cool. But he's brilliant and like he's really taken advantage of the NFT scene, which I do feel like honestly, bro, I do feel like it could potentially be the future because everything now
Yeah,
everything's digitalized. Like it's all
yes,
online
yeah.
now. Major galleries are like so many galleries here in London in like the really prestigious affluent areas are struggling with rent because hardly anyone's going into galleries, especially because of the whole lockdown situation. Everything's
Hmm.
online now. So I think it's just important to take advantage of what's in front of you. I know there is definitely people worry about what it's doing to the environment, NFTs, but I don't know. I just naturally feel like things are naturally going there. Like it's everything is going towards the digital side of things.
I think so. Yeah. I mean, no one owns VHSs anymore. People stream off Netflix, right? I feel like there will
Yeah,
become a time.
exactly.
Yeah, I feel like there will come a time where, and I hate to say this, but there will probably come a time where people will be more interested in your Naomi Campbell NFT than your original. Like, and
Oh, bro.
and that's heartbreaking to say, right? But like 20, you know, oh, I don't want the original.
Bro.
I want the digital because I can show it off in my metaverse. I can, you know, you buy a man, you know, you buy Decentraland, you buy your real estate, your digital real estate. You got your digital art gallery, and then you can put your Naomi Campbell NFT in your digital space and show it off to all your other virtual friends. You know, who cares about what's on your wall here? Like, that's not how I see it at all. I don't see it that way at all, but I kind of see it going in that direction. Maybe unfortunately, but who knows?
Which is why like when you said about adding like the original drawing with NFT, making prints of the drawing is and I would forever be I guess as artists that our kind of art, I will forever be very pro tangible. So work on paper, texture. Like I'm all
Yeah.
about that. So in the NFT
I'm a
space,
traditional
if there's
artist
someone
and I'll always be a traditional
you
artist like that. Like
always,
I'll never
may I
be into
go, man.
digital art
Always.
personally. It's just I have to feel the material, the texture, the tools in my hand. It's just I have to be able to hold it, right? I was even hesitant like when I was
Absolutely.
growing up playing video games. I wanted to own the digital the actual game, you know? Like you don't want to download the game
Mm,
on the TV. Like I had to have the physical copy, you know, like that's kind of like
yes.
what it is for me. I have to have the physical art. Yeah. So I
Mm,
have probably like 100 questions here from the from some of
let's
my
go for it.
followers on my story. Well, why don't we go through some of the questions? I'll
Absolutely.
try to pick we probably can't
Absolutely.
get through all of them, but we'll see. Da, 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 da. Let's see. Tips for free. Oh, this one will be a good one for you probably because you're the freehand master. What are some tips for freehand drawing and also finding stability as an artist?
Sorry, it kind of cut that first bit. Could you
Oh,
repeat the first? Yeah.
what are some tips for freehand drawing and also finding stability as an artist? But I know you probably have a
Hmm.
good answer for the first.
Yeah. So for the first one, like I don't know if it's a good answer because it's for a lot of people. We're in a day and age where people like quick fix. They need to know things quickly and understand it quickly. With the freehand, it really is confidence. Like it's about confidence. So being confident in making mistakes and being confident in like understanding how to maneuver those mistakes. I think like I was it was only 2015 that I discovered that most photorealists and hyperrealists don't actually do freehand.
Yeah.
They either use a projector or they trace. And I didn't like there's I don't feel like there's anything like I don't particularly feel like there's anything completely wrong with it, but the
Hmm.
inner fulfillment and the joy that I have from just doing something from scratch is indescribable.
Yeah.
If I was because the outlining process for me takes on average it's about 15 to 18 hours it will take me to outline like a big work like one of my main drawings on the 70 by but
Yeah.
60 by 80 centimeters, you know? So
Yeah.
there's just so
Yeah.
much joy from just outlining it and just maneuvering it and so much understanding. So I guess learning how to draw freehand, I guess in my online course I do show how I'm doing it, but ultimately it's
Hmm.
just about being confident with just going in
Hmm.
for it and making mistakes because bro, like you know, growing up in school, and I don't want to sound like this guy that is just this conspiracy theorist kind of dude. But you know, being going to school, I feel like schools cripple human beings in terms of their potential. You know,
I
we're
think so.
taught to draw, to write with one hand, to draw with one hand. You know, to sit down in a certain way. Like, why don't we learn
Yeah.
how to draw with both hands? You know, why don't they? Why
Yeah.
don't we encourage? There's so much limitation. You know that I feel.
It's a big box.
But with
Yeah.
me, I've so
Yeah.
yeah, honestly. So with me, the
Hmm.
whole freehand thing was just like going against the norm and the rules of just being confident enough to do things, make mistakes.
Yeah.
Because in school, making mistakes, you can't ask. So if you're taking an exam, you can't ask the teacher for the answers or help with the answers. You have to know it. Like you always have to be right. You know, and
Yeah.
that's for me that is such a limiting way to live, like just always having to know the answers. I think it's okay to make mistakes and then not be discouraged by it but learn from the mistakes
Hmm.
with the whole freehand thing. It's what got me to where I am right now is just being able to embrace mistakes. It's as simple as that,
Yeah.
and having a confidence to go for it. And then the latter question was stability, right?
Hmm.
What I guess is that person speaking more like financially or
Yeah, probably, probably. Yeah.
mm,
Yeah, that one's tough to answer. I think with that one, I mean, stability, if you want stability as an artist, you probably, that's not really, it's almost like an oxymoron in a sense.
Yeah.
But, but I think probably my perspective is like, I've had a lot of people ask me like, should I do art professionally? Should I try to do it as a career? And I personally say no, because not because I don't think that they should, but I think that if someone were to ask whether they should, they probably shouldn't, because it's so
Mm,
difficult. I think that like it's got to be something that you like who am I to tell you whether you should do that or not? You know?
honestly.
So it's like if you need me to tell you to give you permission to do it, like maybe you don't really want it quite enough just yet. Do you know what I mean? So like I'm
100%.
on that, yeah, like I'm on that early journey right now as a professional artist, and I just quit my personal training job a couple months ago, and I'm just starting off with doing this full time now, and it's not something that I would have ever like taken no for an answer for, or you know what I mean. It's
Mm,
not something that I would have ever asked permission to do, because it is
absolutely.
insane to try to do that. It's pretty insane thing
It
to do
is.
that, right?
Is it Steve Jobs that said, I think Steve Jobs said something like, I think he said something along the lines of doing something like every day when you don't like it being, no, so Einstein was the one that saying do the same thing over and over again, expecting different results is insanity.
Mhm.
But Steve Jobs had an interview where he said just exactly what you said about like, if you have to ask, then it's something that you're not supposed to do. Because if you love what you're doing, you do it. You just do it, And
That's
and
right.
I guess trying to make a living from it, yes, it is. It can be quite strategic, but I do very
Hmm.
much believe in what's done in the dark comes to the light. So, for example, if you're
Mm.
if you're working really hard on a certain thing, like I use the gym for example, you can't you can't fake it, in terms of the work that goes into it. Like if you want a
That's
specific
right.
physique, you're gonna have to work for it. Like you're gonna have to do it, and you
That's right.
get the results. The result is you've got V taper, you're in good shape. Like if you can see it, and it's the same thing, I guess, with what we do. The more you do it, the more you really utilize your skills. You put yourself in a
Hmm.
position where your work becomes a lot more, you know, masterful, if I can say. And if a collector's
Hmm.
looking at that, they feel attracted to buy it. But I
That's
would
right.
say I don't know if there's another question, so I might save it for another question actually. If there's, I was gonna try and answer that last bit, but I'll probably save it for another question.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
there's a lot of similar ones like that. But like for me, I think when it comes to finding stability as an artist, like I mean, that shouldn't be the goal. The goal, I think, should be just to create art that you are in love with. And I highly
Mm,
discourage anyone from quitting their job and starting to draw full time just because it's their dream. I strongly, strongly believe in doing what it is that pays your bills and what gets you by, and that and then work on that side hustle day in day out, put the hours in on the side,
mm,
and there will come a time then when it might be justified to then completely jump into that. But I personally think it's a mistake most of the time to just completely jump head first, you know what I mean, into
mm.
something like that. I think building it up on the
I,
side for years, and you got to be doing it because you love it. And then if for some reason you end up making it financially viable, then that's awesome. And
and I think and that's like I can gratefully say that's me. So I've never had what you would call like a 9 to 5. Like, so when I
okay.
when I graduated from university, I just decided to build my portfolio of work. I had no
Hmm.
idea how I was going to make a living from this thing. I just knew that I loved to do it. And at
Yeah,
home, my parents, my family, like there wasn't much encouragement for me to do what I'm doing because they felt like it's not going to bring in an income. But I took the leap of faith. But the thing with me is I have been drawing like this since I was 8 years old. So
yeah.
from a very young age, I was above the norm, you could say. You know, like when I was 15, that's when I first actually realized that I have a talent, because purely based on how my peers in school were reacting to my work and my teachers. So my teacher will literally bring out my work and tell the class this is a skill level that's above norm. So I'm looking at that thinking, but I thought everyone would feel like that. But I had, because I
Yeah.
was drawing every single day, I had built a skill level. There's a whole thing about the
Hmm.
10,000 hours for mastery.
Yep.
Like
Yep. Yep.
I do definitely believe that. And like I had, by the time I was 15, I had already been drawing over 10,000 hours since I was 8, every
Yeah.
single day.
That's right.
So like I guess I never like you, I never just try to encourage people to just take a leap of faith like that unless they've done the work, they've clearly done the work. If you're
That's
just
right. That's right. Yeah.
if you're falling in love with it, you know, especially just of recent, we're falling in love with something, yeah, I think you should definitely utilize time with it. But to stop what you're doing that brings in an income, if you already have bills to pay,
Yeah.
I was lucky because I was
Yeah.
living with my parents. So like
Hmm.
at the time, I could afford to just draw every single day without having to pay bills, fortunately. But not
Hmm.
everyone who's at our age right now has that luxury. Usually, a lot of us
That's right. Yeah.
we're renting, or we have a mortgage we're paying. So yeah, definitely, I
Hmm.
agree with what you said. Like, you know, have that side hustle, do what you're doing, but also find time to, you know, when you have the
Yeah.
time.
I think it's very important to nurture it along the way, and then it'll
Mm.
flourish someday. So we got a question from Praveen. How do you overcome failure when, oh shit. How do you overcome failure when you're making a portrait, especially when it's not coming the way that you want it? I have a quick story about this. Anyone that's probably followed me, actually, Kelvin, I think you followed me on Instagram when I was drawing this specific drawing of Rihanna. And I think that's the first
Oh
one that you
wow.
may have seen of mine, I think.
Oh yeah.
Um, and that I made a
I know the
really,
story of
really,
this as well.
really what?
Brilliant.
I made a
No,
really
I know the
bad
story of
mistake on.
the mistake. Yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah. So like for anyone that maybe is new to my page or whatever, I sweated on my drawing after about 20 something hours into the drawing, and I basically ripped the paper, and I was gonna have to start over, and I didn't know what to I didn't know what to do, whether to start over or to keep going, and I had this idea to cover it up somehow, to work it into the drawing. So I just ended up drawing a crackdoll effect and blending it in, hiding it, almost like covering a tattoo with another tattoo almost. So the original Rihanna drawing was just the regular face, but yeah. So I to the person asking that question, I would, you know, ask yourself, like, why is it not looking the way that you want it to look? Like, is it something that you think you can sell? Like, it, you know, if you spill water on your paper, like, yeah, you probably ruined it, right? But I think it's important to probably stick with something through to the end, unless, you know, unless you just completely unsalvageably just completely destroy it. But yeah, I believe in seeing it through. What do you think? And how do you deal with the
100
failure? I
billion
guess it
percent.
depends on what you call failure.
100 billion percent. Like I agree with that. And yes, I think what makes the artist, every single drawing I have ever drawn has had mistakes that most people would give up on, because it's like,
Hmm.
how do you maneuver it? But the thing about sticking through with it is you learn. It's almost like it's almost like sometimes the mistakes happen to kind of teach you how to level up to the next level. Because so if you can,
Yep.
I very much like my whole thing, like my whole kind of like ethos in life is the obstacles are the way. So when an obstacle is in front of you in life, rather than trying to go around it, you have to go through it. So with to really what it is and to reach that next level. So with my drawings, you know, to overcome that failure or to overcome that mistake, you just stick with it. And then naturally, as a true creative person, you find ways to make that mistake art, like you did with
Hmm.
Rihanna. You can
Yeah,
find
yeah,
ways
yeah.
to maneuver it. A lot of the mistakes that I've made me sneeze on my
Yeah,
work,
that piece ended
which
I
is what I
like
did.
I almost gave oh sorry, you just cut out. Oh, you just cut out there for a sec. Oh, you're good. Yeah, you're right about that. Like for me, it was almost gonna, I almost quit on it. And it ended up being, at the time, I thought my best piece up until that time. And I had almost quit on it. So
Mm.
like ever since that time, like I always try to find a way to see if there's a way to salvage it. And sometimes there's not. Like I just started drawing Joe Rogan actually, and I tried a new
Oh,
paper, and
it's brilliant.
I hated I hated the paper, and I ended up giving up on it a couple hours into it. And then yeah, so like things like that I think is fine, you know, but I think people probably are too easy to quit on their drawing. And I almost refer to a finished drawing as the aggregate of all the mistakes coming together. Do you know what I mean?
100%. It's an amalgam.
Like
A finished drawing for me is an amalgamation of mistakes. That is what my
that's
drawings
right.
are. Like every
That's
single
it.
drawing is just it's just an amalgamation of mistakes. It's all
Yeah.
just because there's no such thing as like I guess when you look at a finished work of art, and it could be anything, it could be a building structure, it could be anything. When you look at something finished, yes, it does have this completed look, but the process, there was no brick is ever perfectly laid. There's always
Mhm.
little, it's always out a little bit. There's no such thing
Yeah.
as that perfection is an illusion. No thing is a perfectionist. Perfection is an
Yeah.
illusion. So I think that is very dangerous because the thing about hyperrealism that is very discouraging for or disheartening for a lot of artists is they think it's perfection, hyperrealism.
Mhm.
So they go into creating hyperrealistic art with the intention of having perfect strokes every step of the way, when really
No, yeah,
it's
that's
just
right.
you make several mistakes when you're trying to
That's
blend.
right.
There's blotchiness, like this.
Yeah.
It's all about mistakes, but it's about that. And you know that, bro. You know the blotchiness is the most annoying, but you find
Yeah.
ways to get
Yeah.
through it, man. And I think that's what levels your skill up. That's what takes you to another level of skill when you can see the mistake and find a way to get through it. It's just like I love to use working out as a lot of examples in my life because you
Yeah,
know
me too.
you're
Yeah.
trying to for example, you're trying to bench press 100 kg, and you're struggling. A lot of people could just quit, like ever trying to attempt that again, but you have to work around it. Like you build yourself up before you can get there, and it's the same thing with what we do. It's not something you can just do overnight. I didn't come out my mum's womb with a pencil drawing the way I do. It takes a lot of patience. It takes patience, it takes endurance, resilience, because those mistakes, yes, it's discouraging. And I would say the person that asked that question, that is a prime example of someone who's come out of the schooling system and believes in failures and mistakes being a negative thing, when really it's
Hmm.
not. Like in life, like any kind of progression you make,
How do you
again,
learn
beginning,
something without a mistake, right? Like that's
absolutely,
how do
yeah.
you like really the only mistake that you should feel bad about, not like to a significant degree, would be the one that you didn't learn from, right? So like that's the whole point of a mistake,
Mm.
right? Is to gain some knowledge from it. Like could you imagine just drawing hyperrealism type drawings just from the start? Like there's probably millions of mistakes that went into that, and then recalibrating,
Mm.
and then adjusting along the way, right? So definitely, definitely, I'm usually grateful for the mistakes because it gives me another opportunity to figure out how to incorporate that into the drawing so that it doesn't look like a mistake necessarily, right? Like with my
Absolutely.
with my latest Michael Jordan drawing, the hand was
Beautiful, by the way.
I dropped. Thank you, thank you. I dropped some charcoal powder on the hand, and it rubbed right into the page, and it could not erase. It was just a big black spot that covered the whole hand, and so that was a huge mistake that just wasn't salvageable. But I couldn't erase it. But I figured out a way to incorporate it into the wrinkles to make it look like it was part of the drawing to some extent, right? So that you wouldn't be able to necessarily do that otherwise if you didn't make those mistakes, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right, let's
Yeah.
see if I can find a couple more interesting ones here. How are you doing today? Pretty excited for today. Oh yeah, me too. How, um, let's see. A lot of these I have a hard time reading. I feel like I have a lot of non-native English speakers on my Instagram.
See.
Um, oh, here's one. Which one is easier to do the hyperrealism? A very large drawing or a smaller drawing?
By far, a smaller drawing is hardest.
Yeah. Yeah, yes,
The
that's
reason why,
right.
the reason, mm,
I think so too because like for me what took my drawing to another level, like anytime I made a progression in my skill, it was almost always when I made the paper bigger. And it wasn't necessarily that my skill got better per se, but the drawings looked more real because you can fit more pixels in the same area, right? Like imagine trying to draw that same amount of detail in a smaller space, right? Is
it's
that where you were going
it's
with that?
100% because like so for example, using like 8 by 11 inches, which is like A4 paper, trying to draw,
Hmm.
if I try to
Hmm.
draw Naomi Campbell on that paper, I'm gonna miss out
There's no room.
the hair, for example. There's no room. So like individual strands of the hair is gonna appear a little bit
Or
too
like a
thick
millimeter
because the
big.
top of, yeah. So then it's like
Yeah,
the
yeah.
realism isn't really real because it's like I'm trying to fit all this, I'm trying to make pores on in such a really small area, so it's not going to really
Hmm.
come across very realistic. I think the most like for me, realism is tonal value. So if the
Hmm.
tones are correct, then the work it can really come across as very realistic. The
Hmm.
details is what takes it to hyper realism. So
Hyper real,
with
like
sword
for
and
me the
silver,
hyper realism is like beyond. It's like for me what's the textbook quality of what makes hyperrealism is like whether or not like you can see those details like smack in your
mm,
face up close, right? Like that to me is
mm,
like the difference between hyperrealism and the photorealism, where like I think some of the most important elements of photorealism and even hyperrealism are like you touch on shape and value, right? And shape and value can go a long, long, long way, right? And that's I think
oh yeah,
when I think when you're drawing smaller, like 11 by 14 inches or something like that, I think it's probably more important to focus on just capturing the proper values and the
oh
tone and
yeah,
the shadow, because there's not as much room for the details anyway, right?
exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, so I definitely agree with you on that one. All right. Um, how do you stay motivated to draw for 100 hours? Any tips for not losing my mind? And you are inspiring, by the way. That's thank you very much. Yeah, I can let you touch on that right quick if you want.
Yeah. So
But
a tip
they're
was for
assuming
me.
that we didn't lose our minds. They're making an assumption
I
that we
lost my
didn't lose
mind.
our minds.
Man,
Yeah,
my mind is lost every single time, man. But
yeah.
yeah, like I think so. The reason why sometimes I'm reluctant to share how long my drawings take to people is because it's discouraging for a lot of people, especially in this day and age where after 3 seconds, people's interest is gone, or they can't hold their attention longer than 10 seconds, which is why Instagram pushed 15-second videos
TikTok,
up to a
TikTok.
minute.
Yeah,
with
Yeah.
oh TikTok exactly. With he said to be able to endure 100 hours, he's already going into creating a work of art, having the mind frame that it's going to take 100 hours. You should never
Hmm.
think about how long it's going to take. You just have to do
No.
it, you know,
Yeah.
and just so when you just do it, and then you also find time to take breaks, and just understand that this is not going to happen in a day. The cliche
That's
saying
right.
that Rome wasn't built in a day is very much
Hmm.
in relation to art as well. Like I never go into thinking that I'm gonna have this work finished in one day. If anything, I
No.
love to stretch it out. So by stretching it out,
As
I'm
much as you
looking at
can.
it with fresh pair of eyes. Yeah, I do, and
Yeah.
that's probably why it
Yeah.
takes as long as it does, because I want to look at it with a fresh pair of eyes, because I know that every day I do 14 hours of drawing a day, and I know that in that time
Wow.
I'm exhausted. I'm really so honed into one area that I need to take a break away from it. So that's why I drag it on to several days. Just sometimes I spend a whole day just looking at the work, just looking at it,
Hmm.
seeing how I'm gonna, attempt it, and just feeling it rather than just trying to finish it. I think that's for me personally. I think it's very dangerous to try to finish the work rather than just create the work. It's
Hmm.
you put a lot of pressure on yourself by thinking how long
That's
it's
right.
gonna take. Just do it because you enjoy it.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with you. For me, it's more, for me, I've always been, or well, at least more so now, I'm more focusing on the process and less, like,
Mm,
I almost don't care about when it's done, really. Like, I mean, I do, obviously, you want to finish it, but I try not to even remotely think about finishing it. Like the goal for me is not to finish it. The goal for me is to draw today. Right? Like for me, it's almost like I see a drawing almost as like, again, let's bring it back to the gym again, right? It's like if you were training
mm,
for a powerlifting competition in 6 weeks from now, you would have to probably work out for like 2 hours a day every day or most days of the week for 6 to 8 weeks or whatever it is, right? And a drawing is almost like that, right? You're not going to do all your training for the meet in a couple days and just cram it all in, right? It's a journey that you have
mm-hmm.
to go on. And for me, I don't see it any different. Like, how do you work out 2 hours a day for a month to prepare for this meet? Well, that doesn't seem like a big deal, right? But like for me, that's kind of
Mm,
how I see the drawing. I'll just draw for
absolutely.
2, 3, 4 hours, draw for a few hours a day, and it'll get done eventually. And that's just kind of, I focus on what task I need to execute every day, not what I need to finish in the future, right? 14 hours, that's a
Absolutely.
long time to draw. I don't think I've ever drawn that long. Maybe that's why I don't get sore neck or back, is because I really can only do 4, 5, 6 hours a day before I lose focus.
I definitely like it's definitely something. So I would say from like 2016, 2018. So from about I would say from 2006 to 2012, it was just normal for me to draw 8 hours a day. But it's like
Yeah.
I just found that the bigger the scale that I went, and also the training, and there is a routine to my day, so I don't just get up and start drawing, like I get up, I read, I meditate, I work out. So like physically, mentally, spiritually, I'm ready to enjoy the day. And I draw for 4 hours, I take a 1 hour break. There's the break in between a day is very important for me. And it's just like a nice 1 hour break, and I can get to it. My body is just used to that, like
Hmm.
I guess because I've been doing it for so long, like my body's just used to it. I'm used to sitting down for a
Hmm.
long period of time, standing up for a long period of time. I'm just used to it. I wouldn't encourage a beginner to start drawing for that many hours, but like
Yeah, yeah.
it's just I just get lost in it. So it's easy for me to do.
Yeah, for me, when I was younger, like when I was 8 to 14 years old, I would draw 8 hours almost every day after school until I go to bed type thing. I wouldn't do my homework. I just draw. But for me, I find it much more challenging today to draw extended hours every day. Like I find it very difficult to do more than 4 or 5 hours in a day for very focused drawing for me because I feel like I'm so focused now on my work that it's almost more tiring than the work I used to do. It's like it takes more focus to do this type of
Oh yeah.
work. So I feel like if I'm doing more than 5 hours in a day, I feel like it's garbage work. Like I can't really. I need to start doing something else, like work on editing a video maybe, or do something that's different, right? But
Mm.
and also, I find I feel pressure to draw when I feel pressured because I'm recording all the time with the tutorials and all that, and when you're recording, there's this different type of pressure too, right? Which I find is more exhausting.
Oh yeah.
Like when
Like it's
when there's no camera on you,
sorry, God.
it's very when there's no camera on you, I feel very free. Like, oh, I can finally draw this way. I can lean over my page. I'm free,
Yes.
right? But when that
Yes.
tutorial's filming, I'm like, I can't take a break to check my phone. I can't sit here for
Exactly.
2 seconds. You're just focused, right? So I do kind of
You
to
almost
some
can't even
extent
breathe. It's
do.
too heavy.
Yeah, yeah, that's right. That's right. Let's go through some more of these. Why did you delete your long YouTube videos? I guess they're probably asking me that question. Those are my tutorial videos that I used to put on YouTube for free. They're now on Patreon exclusively. So unfortunately,
Mm.
you got to subscribe to my Patreon. At what age did you guys
Invest.
at what age did you guys get serious about art? For me, honestly, I was serious as soon as I started. Like, if you mean serious in terms of like trying to improve every single time and taking it seriously, did you take it seriously right from the start?
From the very start. I think
Me too.
I'm not sure whether that person means serious as in like professionally, like actually make money and profit from
Hmm.
it. But I've always taken it seriously. Like it's just something I truly love to do. And since that age of 8,
Yeah.
I remember vividly, just I was just very serious about drawing, just very passionate about it.
Hmm. Yeah. One thing that people are certainly curious about is what paper you use. And did you always use the same paper?
Yeah,
Or
so
have
I
you,
have
when did you
always.
start?
Sorry, buddy.
Like, so I know that you use the Lambeth cartridge 170 gram paper, correct?
Yeah,
Is that a
yes,
textured
that's correct.
paper? Is it smooth or
No, it's
textured?
smooth. It's smooth. But you can
Like,
see a tiny, you can see tiny lines, but it's smooth. It's smooth paper.
okay. Is it Bristol? Is it thick?
No, so it's cartridge paper. So it's got the bigger it is. So I definitely don't recommend people using like 170 GSM for like an A1 size paper because the bigger it is, and the weight of the paper, the bigger it is, if the weight is light, it's gonna have the ripple effect to it. So
Hmm. Hmm.
when you're like really using a lot of pressure to shade, there's gonna be a ripple effect to it. So I would recommend using
Hmm.
heavier weighted paper for bigger scales. So like yeah, so the Lambert drawing card the cartridge paper is smooth. When you look really closely to it, there is like fine lines to it, but
Yeah.
it's very smooth. It's predominantly
Okay.
smooth. And like
But is it a vellum paper though?
I've always used no, no,
So it's an actual
acid
pressed
free
smooth.
cartridge paper.
Oh
Yeah.
wow. Okay, so I thought it was more of a textured vellum paper. That's neat. I'm using so 170 grams seems quite low. So it
It
does
is
is
low. So
so do
it's
you find
low
that that
for
affects? do you find that that affects your like 170 grams? Do you find it affects it for your bigger drawings, or do you use more grams for the larger drawings that you do?
I use more grams for the larger drawing. So I
Okay.
170, the maximum size I will go for 170 is A2. So I think A2
Okay.
is 24 by 18 inches. So that's the max I would go. A1, anything bigger, I will take it up to 200 plus GSM, like the heavier weighted, because
Mm,
that way you won't get the ripple effect. It will be,
that's
when
right.
you frame it, it will fit in the borders very nicely. So yeah, definitely the
Hmm.
lightweighted paper, the benefit for me from using lightweighted paper is, and using like a solid surface to draw on, is you can create really nice smooth tones using a paintbrush and a sponge, which is like my little secret technique to create my backgrounds. You can create like really soft, even tones using that lightweighted
Hmm.
paper, but smooth cartridge paper. The textured paper, you will get the blotches, but every single paper I use, before I put pencil to paper, I putty rubber, and a monolith potty rubber to
Yes,
rub the paper,
the oil,
especially the
the
edges,
oil.
because yeah, exactly. So
Because
with the
when you
papers that
use
I
the
use,
powder on, and then you get the finger oil, it's awful. Whenever I make the
oh
background, like
God,
whenever I make the background like that, I'm using, let's say, like a makeup brush to add the charcoal powder to the background, and then a big fingerprint shows up. Be- like so,
woo!
so
It's so
yeah.
annoying.
So that's really good. So if anyone's running into that, do like what you said is a great idea to, before you draw, take that kneaded eraser and just clean off the entire page. Even though it looks clean, get everything off of it, because there's some invisible oil on the paper that you'll need to get off,
Yeah,
and the kneaded eraser does a great job with that.
absolutely.
And I'm currently, I've had the worst luck with paper recently, man. It's just been horrible. I'm using Strathmore right now. I'm seeing some pretty good results with the Strathmore Smooth Bristol 300 series, which is good. But
What what
I tried a
what
more
size?
textured paper for, it's 19 by 24 inches.
So is it binded? Is it in like a folder, or is it sold
It's a
separately?
pad.
Sheets. Yeah.
It
So
comes in a 20 sheet pad.
okay.
It's 220
So
grams,
with
I
the paper,
believe. It's pretty thick.
with the paper that I use, it's sold like individually. So there's a paper factory here in London called John Purcell, and they handle the paper,
Hmm.
which is why I definitely erase it, because it's not just my
Hmm.
fingerprints. The paper comes 100 by 70 by 100 centimeters. So every single drawing that I do, I manually cut it once I've got the
Hmm.
outline. So because the paper
Oh,
is
I
really
see.
big, and that way,
Hmm.
like I have to, because it's sold like it comes like in 10 sheets of the paper, 100 by 70 centimeters, and it's been handled by someone. So I make sure that I have to erase the sides and the edges, because that blotchiness is so incredibly, it can be really frustrating. But then
Oh
I
yeah,
have
I hear
found
you on
that
that one.
in order to kind of maneuver that, like it's helpful to use like white charcoal or the white ivory pastel to like go over that blotch and blend it in with a cotton bud or a paintbrush to kind of keep the tones even, or you just rub it out and then start over using a
Yeah,
paintbrush or sponge.
that's a good idea. I've never actually thought to use a sponge. That's pretty interesting.
Oh, you will
Um,
see some incredible things. Like the sponge has been my secret weapon for many years, man. Definitely
not
with my
anymore.
backgrounds,
Not.
with how. Oh, you see,
I,
it's revealed some work now.
so do you
But
use
I've
graphite
revealed some
powder for your
when I say
background, or?
I used to use graphite powder. I stopped using graphite powder in 2014 because I found that
Okay.
graphite powder, compared to the charcoal sticks that I use, it has a different tone. And with
Yes.
the charcoal, there's a certain level of black that you can achieve using the charcoal powder, like the
Yep.
graphite powder. Sorry, you can't get
Yeah.
really dark tones, you know. So I use a compressed charcoal called Jakar, Jakar. It's a compressed charcoal set, and it comes in 6 tones. So you have white, you got like light gray, mid gray, dark gray, and then black. So you've got like a range of charcoal tones. And what I do is I use a cutting knife and I shave the charcoal to create the deposits. And then I sprinkle that on paper and use a sponge to, so this is if I'm creating a background. I use a sponge to like in a circular motion, which kind of gives the background a matted, even finish. It definitely like,
Hmm.
and even if you do see a fingerprint, you can rub it out and use a sponge again, and it comes completely smooth. So that's kind of what I use. I don't use graphite powder anymore because it's just a different tone from the charcoal, and it
Yeah.
doesn't really have an opaque black tone to it.
I never liked the graphite powder myself. Ever since I started using the powder, I take the 6B General's compressed charcoal sticks and file them down with this thing, and I just make
Yes.
the charcoal powder, and I just make the own charcoal powder myself. And also, I find this is a mistake I made early on too. And a lot of people are making this mistake is they're using cheap willow powder. I find like the charcoal powder that you buy in the container. Big
No,
big mistake.
that's
It's no good.
big mistake. Yeah,
Big mistake. It's
you
no
know,
good. It's like very cheap. It just brushes off the page. It doesn't go as dark. It's very cheap quality. You need to take like the good
yeah,
quality charcoal stick and make your own. That's always what I
absolutely.
recommend doing.
It's like I definitely have noticed that with the charcoal sticks, especially if it's compressed, there's a bit of oil in those sticks, which helps it stick to the paper. With those willow charcoal
Hmm.
sticks, it's just raw charcoal, and it's just you can you can you can use it on the paper, and you can actually blow away the extracts, and it
Yeah,
doesn't stick to the paper. It's really
it doesn't
quite
stick to the
flimsy,
paper.
actually. Mm.
Exactly. It just brushes right off, I find.
Mm.
Morning routines. Do you guys drink coffee or tea? I drink coffee. Lot of
No,
caffeine
no,
when I'm. Do you like to drink coffee when you're drawing, or do you find it too
nothing at all.
stimulating?
Just just water. You know, like I definitely
Okay.
find that I break my fast 3 o'clock every day, 3 p.m. every
Me
day.
too. Are you
I have
kidding me?
found I've definitely, bro. Come on,
We're,
you know we're in sync, bro. Come on, man. Brother from another mother, for real. But what I have found definitely over the years,
I eat from 3 until 11 every day.
you see. Like what? It's the same exact thing. But what I have definitely found is when I like I don't know. I don't like. So what helps me draw long hours is knowing that, because sometimes when food is in your system, and especially if you're eating meats or any kind of like heavy content food, your digestive system is working to break that down, and it actually makes you
Hmm.
sluggish. So even
Hmm.
like fasting or having like an empty stomach or a relatively empty stomach while drawing, you actually find that you have a lot more energy. It's a strange logic, I know, from what the world teaches
Yeah.
you, but I have definitely found
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
drawing with an empty stomach, I could go on forever. Like I can go on for
Yeah.
as long as I want to.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's it.
But yeah,
It's
three
interesting
o'clock.
because when you're in that 3 to 11, yeah, when you're in that fasted state, you're relying on those ketones and you don't get that blood glucose up and down, right? So I find just that sustained
Absolutely.
energy, certainly. Yeah, a little bit of black coffee during that fast,
Yeah.
I love it. It's fantastic. Man, that's hilarious that you're doing the time restricted feeding too. Yeah, no, I really do like, and I find it helps with my sleep too. If I tend to
100%.
get some sleeping problems if I'm eating too much food before bed, and so I fast a couple. I
Mm,
eat a few hours before bed, and then I skip breakfast and lunch, and then I'm good to go.
mm.
Um, so, what is the most valuable give to an artist? I guess maybe an artist that's just starting out. it doesn't specify, but what's the most valuable art advice that you would give to an artist?
Hmm. So give to an artist. So an artist that's just beginning, I guess advice I can give to that artist is to just be very honest and true with what it is you want to create. Because the dangerous thing is, especially if you've gone to university or you've studied art or school, you get told what you're supposed to do. And when someone else is telling you what it is you love to do, they could never really know. So it's not going to be long lasting. So if you're drawing something and you've been told to draw a specific thing that you don't even really feel connected to, you're not really going to put your heart and soul into it. So I'll definitely say as a beginner artist to draw and or to create anything that you truly want to create and be honest with it. Don't lie to yourself. Like be
Hmm.
really honest. It could be absolutely anything. Like people have just always been something that I've been fascinated with and that I love to understand. So it's just natural that I draw people always. But whatever your interests are, draw it or create it and be honest with it. Someone who is
Hmm.
like, I guess, who has a bit of experience, who isn't a beginner and has an experience, an advice I can give them is it's really vast because what you want, what is your outcome? Do you want to make a living with your art? Do you want to have like a big social media following? Do you want to understand how to price your work? It depends what that person wants, but ultimately, it's just creating art that you truly want to create. That goes a long way, and
Hmm.
that helps you have longevity with creating art because
Hmm.
it's not just something that's in the moment. Like for a lot of people, NFTs is just like it's a quick way to make a buck, and there's nothing wrong with that. But it won't be
Hmm.
long lived because it's just there's going to be a time where your work isn't sought after, so you're not making any money, and because it's something you don't like to create, you've just lost the inspiration and passion to do it. So you've lost in the end. But just be honest with what it is that you want to create and be true to yourself. That would be my
That's a
advice
good
for you.
answer.
What would yours be?
I like that. I like that because for me, it's like you touched on, right? Like you want to do something that you're passionate about. Like that's for me why I've
Mm,
always drawn celebrities and people that I look up to. And for me, I know like, and that's one thing that attracted me to your art too, is because like you draw the celebrities and there's not a whole lot of hyperrealism artists actually that are willing to just draw mainstream stuff, right? Like most
mm,
hyperrealism artists really are people that will take their own photography, which is fantastic, or they'll draw, like like people that they might know in real life or pictures that they took. But like for me, I've always been really attracted to drawing the recognizable faces.
mm.
And that's just something that I think. So I think picking something that you enjoy doing and that you can do for 10 years, 20, 30, 40 years, right? You don't want to just like you said,
Yeah,
you're not going to stick with it, right? Well, I'm going to go through a
because
few more
the
of
thing about the
these. We're
hyper
coming up.
realist.
I was just going to say we'll go
So
through a
I'll just
few more of
yeah.
these
Okay.
after you answer that part. I don't want to go take up too much. We're coming up on 2 hours here. I'm having a great time, but
Oh,
why don't go?
yeah. Let's get on. Let's get on. Let's get on.
Yeah, go. Were you going to say something else?
No, I'm just going to quickly touch on the fact that I think a lot of the hyper-realist artists and just even artists in general, like, because I take my own pictures and I draw my own model. Like when I have a theme or something that I want to work on, there's nothing wrong with that. But I think a lot of artists draw things like they stay away from the commercial side because that's what's been like, especially if you've gone to school, they almost kind of frown upon doing anything that's too
They did.
commercial. Like you have to
They
you have to
did. Yeah.
do something that is so with my heritage is Nigerian. So in university, I was kind of like encouraged and forced to do African sculptures or do things that are in relation to where I'm from heritage wise. But I was born here in London. And my peers and what I see around me, is what I see. Like, it's not predominantly Nigerian. That's not my influence in this country. So I have to be
Hmm.
very honest with what it is that I'm influenced by and create that. And at the time, it was my friends, you know, who come from all parts of the world, Asia, you know, Africa, like just all over the place. So I'm not just narrowing myself and creating art that is just, you know, okay, I'm Nigerian, so I have to create art centered around that. Like, there's nothing wrong with, but that's
Hmm.
not my reality. I'm not in
That's
Nigeria.
right.
Like, you know, I'm
That's
in a
right.
country where it's multicultural. It's, you know, under the British Empire. Like, there's many influences that I see around me.
Yeah,
So I'm gonna draw what I see. But a lot of hyper realists and photorealists will create art that is that has to be, you know, thought provoking, and that has to
that's
seem
right.
original. You know,
Yeah,
that's what
that's right.
that's what discourages a lot of artists. You know.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree with that. Like that's never ever what attracted me to art in the first place. And that was why early on I actually never really referred to myself as an artist per se,
Mm.
because I just like to draw realistic pictures of these mainstream figures, and like it for me it was art, but like do you know what I mean? It's like it almost was frowned
Absolutely.
upon. I think it was like whenever I found it was almost like frowned upon when I was like it was almost cheap. Like it was like cheap to draw a celebrity, you know, like oh that's
Yeah.
it, you know what I mean? But like for me, I just wanted to say
Absolutely.
screw that. I'm gonna take this cheap form of hyperrealism and just try to max it out and make it cheap by doing it as best as I can, because that is what I love to do, is drawing those realistic portraits, right? And there's also not a lot of people that are working at that really high level that decide to draw the celebrities, I find. So that for me is what makes it
Yeah.
really inspiring and motivating to draw. Like for example, there's not a whole lot of hyperrealism artists that are wanting to draw Jordan Peterson.
And Jordan
Like there's,
Peterson is amazing.
yeah, yeah. So like for
Yeah.
me, that's really attractive. All right, let's see if we can fit a few more in here. Um, um, did you get any questions on your end, or I guess you didn't? I guess it was me that put the question box, I guess. How do you take your drawing to the next level when you feel like you've hit a wall? That's a good question.
Mm. Take a drawing to the next level when you feel like you've hit a wall. Check, like, so I think the hitting a wall thing is doing something. So if anyone ever feels like that, that's because they're doing something, the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. That different result
Hmm.
being that no one's really responding to that work that they're creating, or they're not really seeing improvement with it. So what I would suggest, if that person is a draftsman, if they draw, hang on. So if you're working on predominantly people, how about you draw landscape? And that doesn't have to be something that you do forever, but take a break and draw a different subject. And I think that it
Hmm.
helps with perspective. It helps like with inspiration as well. You know, I think take a break from that thing that you're doing and try something else in terms of subject matter.
Hmm.
You know, or
I
or
like
work
that.
on a bigger scale. You know, it's I think doing that same thing, working on the same scale, drawing the same kind of subject, you know, and when you're not seeing any results, of course, you feel like you've hit a wall because you're not seeing any
Hmm.
change for better or worse. So change it
Hmm.
completely. Do something completely different. I
Yeah.
would say. I would suggest.
I agree.
Mm.
I agree with that, and I guess that also depends on what you mean by wall, right? Like if you've hit like
Mm.
a wall in terms of like you don't feel like you're improving anymore, or a wall of like you're hitting like a writer's block type of thing, or you know what I mean? But like for me, I think one thing that really helped me personally whenever I felt like I was plateauing, and for me, the thing that kept allowing me to improve, I think, was focusing on for the first thing, first of all, was getting the hours in every day, but I think every time I increased the size of my paper, I think that's when it allowed me to break through and do another level of skill, was just going bigger. Like
Mm,
I basically what I did was ever since I was younger, I drew on 11 by 14 inches. And then
mm,
a few years ago, I felt like I had kind of maxed out, like I wasn't seeing any more improvement. But that's when I decided to go 14 by 17 inch. And then I drew at that size for a full year. And then I felt like I'd sort of maxed out that size, like I wasn't getting better anymore. My drawings weren't
mm.
looking better. So then I upped it to 19 by 24 inch. And that again catapulted it to another level of realism. So for me,
Very good.
I would personally recommend if you're hitting a wall, experiment with bigger paper, like draw bigger, and it'll almost certainly you start getting more realistic. But having said that, I wouldn't
Mm,
go from small to too big right away. Maybe just like I do. I went a little bit bigger, did that for a few months, then a bit bigger again, and then so you get to adapt along the way. And
yes.
another thing too, maybe is like you said, focus on doing different things. But I think maybe even if you want to draw different types of people, like for me, there was a year where I would draw like
Yeah.
fan art. Like I would draw Raccoon, Thanos, the Joker, and there was a period where I was just drawing
Okay.
like movie characters instead of and but now I'm focusing more on the actual individual himself. But I think that is a good way to mix it up. What do
Mm,
you think?
absolutely. No, that's exactly what I meant. Like, with different subject, like a different person, an old person, a young person, different ethnicity, different hair type. Like, mix it up. Like change it. Doing that same thing. You can definitely feel like you've hit a wall if you're not seeing any change. So the best
Hmm.
way to change is to literally change what it is that you're working
Yeah,
on. So yeah,
yeah,
definitely.
yeah.
Mm,
For me, a big thing that I do now when I feel like I'm like I want because I want to switch things up, right? So what I might do is draw a couple male pictures, and then I might try to draw a woman with nice flowy
perfect.
hair, and
Very
then
good.
once I got that out of my system, now I can focus on a more detail heavy male portrait, right? Maybe I draw a white man and then a black man and then a woman, and then so
Mm,
it's different. Maybe Walter White bald and then draw someone with more hair after. So you're always switching it up and you're never getting bored.
mm,
So for me that is
absolutely.
for me that for me that's personally how I
Perfect.
keep it exciting. Yeah. Is there anything
I
that
hear you,
you
man.
want to share with everyone who's watching? Any last things? We just going on 2 hours. It's been an awesome
Well,
discussion here, but maybe we could
oh,
we got to start
really,
cooking
really.
our breakfast soon. Oh, it's 4 o'clock over. You've already eaten. You've already eaten. It's 6 where you're at now. Okay, yeah. It's
Yeah,
coming up on
6 o'clock.
my it's coming up
Yeah.
on my first meal. Uh, is there anything you want to give
Oh
give
man.
advice to anyone that's listening? Any closing
Yeah.
any closing advice?
First, like, first and foremost, like, thank you for joining us. We hope, I hope like it was something quite, you got something from it in terms of inspiration, some form of direction of where you're heading. The last thing, what I would like to leave with a lot of you guys is okay to make mistakes. Trust me, like
Hmm.
mistakes is the best thing you could ever encounter in life. I think they say you can't prevent an accident. So it's not like you're trying to look for mistakes.
It wouldn't
When
be
a
an accident
mistake
if you
then
could prevent it,
quote
right?
unquote exactly, you know? So like embrace it because that is the key to leveling up wherever you want to go. So there's been a few questions about how you get to the next level, whether that's advancing your skill, whether that's like an income, whatever that is, whatever obstacles that you're facing around it, go and the best way to go through an obstacle is to surrender. And I don't mean waving the white flag. I mean just accept what is in front of you, accept it, and just find a
Just
way
let
to
go.
understand it.
Just let go.
Let go. It's I
Yeah.
know like I think for a lot of you it might just sound so airy fairy and like some spiritual guru, a monk in the Himalayas, but really and truly, it's so powerful. Let go
Yeah.
of that thing that is holding you. Like just let go of it, and you'll find that it just opens up in front of you. So yeah, embrace
Hmm.
mistakes, embrace the mistakes that you make. You know, don't be discouraged by it, be empowered by it, and just be true,
Hmm.
man. Be honest and true to yourself, and when you are,
Hmm.
it just comes out in your work. That's what I can share. That's what I would share with you guys.
That's awesome. And that kind of goes into my headphones, by the way. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, good. That kind of goes into what you were saying, like with it kind of reminds me of how you let go. When I said let go, it almost reminded me of what you do with your drawings. And um, what I notice when I look at your reference pictures is it's never just the same as the reference picture.
Yes, exactly.
Never the same. It's never the same. Like a great example is your Prince drawing where you took a closed eyes and you put the eyes open,
Mm.
right? So like, and there's even I don't know if it's your nephew, your niece, or your interlude drawings that you draw her every few years. Is that
Yes,
your
Mia. So that's my
Mia?
friend's daughter. Yeah, yeah,
Friends are okay, yeah.
yeah.
So like, what I noticed with her drawings of yours is maybe it's not her, maybe it's some of the older person. It was maybe it's an older Mia drawing. I'm not too sure, but I noticed that the uh, the shape of the neck was a little bit different. The shape of the face was a little bit different. The hair was kind of flowing in a different. It was completely different from the picture,
Yeah.
and it just looked beautiful, right? And it's
Thank
not
you.
like I think if you would have stuck exactly to the reference picture, it wouldn't have had that feel to it.
Yeah. I love. Thank you for bringing up this point because that's definitely something. Even to answer a few of the questions that was before, I think what kind of stresses a lot of people out is the fact that they're trying to get the work identical to the reference photo, and
Yeah.
it's impossible. You know, like you can possibly do it, but it will take you forever if you want to perfectly get it. Let go and
Mhm.
feel like so with me. Like I know that sometimes you can be flattering, so you can thicken some eyebrows, you can thin the eyebrows, you can make the hair a lot more flowy. You know, just feel free to to make small changes. You know, like none of the drawings I've ever drawn is completely identical to the reference. There's always a slight change, and that's just my freedom. Like that's just me being free to create and do something how I want to do it. Sometimes I could over flatter someone, like I could make, I guess for a woman, for example, I could make her skin more clearer than it probably was, or for a male as well, you know, or I could make the hair a lot more fuller, but that's okay. You know, you can feel free to create how you want to create, man. I love that point you brought up, bro.
Yeah, yeah. I think, and I'm only now just starting to learn this. Like when I was just getting into hyperrealism, I felt the need to copy the picture. Like that was the goal, is to copy it as accurately as possible. But then
Mm,
as I started actually getting more advanced with my hyperrealism, the more I actually pulled away from the reference picture and just let go. And I kind of talk about that in my most recent Instagram post too, where I kind of touch on like the fact that you're not necessarily going to, if the goal is for it to look like more of them, like look more like them, you're not going to make it look more like them by getting the shoulder perfect, right? Like
mm.
just draw a shoulder, have fun with it, and uh, and yeah, I think you'll have a lot more fun. It'll be more original to you,
Yes.
and you'll save time. It'll be more fun, and it'll be more
Yeah.
original, and it'll probably look more beautiful in the meantime.
Yeah, it
But
has your own essence in it. You put your own essence into the work. Like it's very, very
that's
true.
right.
I think that's a really key one. I hope the people listening really got that because I think that will help a lot of people who are like discouraged and thinking too much about how long the piece takes. When you find that you're just improvising you know, time, you might spend 5 hours, but it won't feel like 5 hours because it's your own time. You're flowing with it. It's a great
So
point
for
you
me,
brought up, Dan.
when I first discovered this was when I was drawing my Walter White drawing. And it was when I was drawing the details on the forehead, I noticed that I would barely look at the reference picture for like hours. And
Mm,
I would just kind of free ball. I would kind of get an idea of what the patterns are that I'm trying to capture. And once I got into the routine, once I got into the pattern of the details in my head, I didn't need the reference picture as much. And time,
mm,
and I distinctly remember like, wow, this is the most fun I've had drawing in
mm,
a long time. And time would just pass by like crazy. 5 hours would be like that. And it ended up looking just as realistic, but no detail was in the right exact spot
mm.
necessarily.
Yeah.
But it was an aggregate of all the details that I was making that was important. So I guess that would be a big takeaway is learn to let go from the reference picture and just be okay with making it your own.
Beautiful.
Yeah. So I think that's a great place to leave it, man. That was an awesome conversation. I just want to
Yes,
say
man.
thank you so much for having this conversation. And I want to say to you, when I discovered you in 2016, the Naomi Campbell drawing, that for me was one of the first times that I ever saw hyperrealism. And for me, like I kind of look at you almost as my Bruce, my not my Bannister. Who's the guy that ran the 4 minute mile? I forget his name, but you were like my
Okay, yeah.
you were like
Nice
my
to.
4 minute mile. Do you know what I mean? Like, so for me, I looked at your work. I thought that it was basically impossible that you could do this. And over the years, I've been continually studying your work, and I definitely owe you a lot I definitely owe you a lot of gratitude for where I am today because I followed you in 2016. So I
Appreciate that, man.
definitely am grateful for that, and you'll always remain one of my biggest inspirations.
Sick, bro. Appreciate that, brother, man. That hit home. Gonna make me cry on camera, man. Jeez. Nah, appreciate that, bro. From the bottom of my heart, man. I really appreciate that. And the beautiful thing is, there's someone that feels the exact same way about you. You know, that's just
Mm.
starting out. I'm sure many people who's logged into this. That's the beautiful thing about this art thing and about just inspiration. Like it's once you've taken the initiative and you've studied and you've done the work, someone else is watching you, and it's just like what would you call it? But it just goes on and on and on. Like it's just an infinite circle, you know. So, bro,
Your past,
those words, I appreciate
you
that.
know, it's like I feel like you've passed the baton on to me, and I'll continue to pass it on to
Thank
other
God.
people.
Beautiful, brother.
All right.
Appreciate that, man.
You never know who you can inspire and who the person that you inspire can inspire, and it's just gonna keep
Love
going.
him. Absolutely.
So thank you so much for having this
Likewise.
conversation.
That's what.
I'm gonna post this to my Instagram for people to see that couldn't make it. So I might post it to YouTube as well. So
Oh,
thank you so
brilliant.
much. I'm gonna
You're
break my
welcome, brother.
fast. And
That's so cool, man. That's so cool that you do that as well.
yeah.
Yeah,
All
brother,
right, bro.
man. Like, till next time, man.
Thank you
You're
so
welcome,
much,
bro.
and we'll talk soon.
Much love, brother. Take care, bro.
Much love, brother.